we're doing design today. We're still kind of like moving through some of the nitty gritty of the design. What we did is we trailblazed out a couple of screens here, and I think we're good on this stuff on the left, which is like your overview of different projects you have going. I have a couple things that I believe make sense to add to this, so let's go in and add them. If we're working in a local project, the local project represents file system access to a project sitting on your desktop. Wouldn't it make sense to have something to open up the file system quickly, right? Like you're just like, boom, open the folder. So let's find a little glyph that'll say folder, I guess. This one or this one, this one or this one. File folder, or open file folder. Let's go with that guy. See how that works. Cool. Okay, and I think there's even one more that we can add. Can we open up Sublime Text 3 and VS Code and tell it to open a folder? That would save time, right? Like tangible time. I think just a function like that is sort of like a no-brainer. Maybe just that yellow, just a little bit of yellow. Yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Okay, so I think that's that part. We're good, I think, on these two screens. Let's make some more. We need to do the section on components. So inside of this app, this is where you would like add and remove components. And that's all it's there for. Here's where it gets, in my opinion, kind of interesting. Like the web and worker component are the same. These components are going to be based on whatever language you already set up in the project. We'll probably do the web one because it's a little bit like more broken out. The data components. This is where stuff explodes because every type of data component has its own little thing. There are 8 different types of data components that they roll out. So every single one of these guys has a different set of configs that can be passed through it. And luckily there's like a good deal of documentation here. This is what the, MySQL looks like. And Redis has got an entirely different set of configs. So we've got, this is where all our work is. If we just found where all the work in the project is. So when we do this, we're just going to need to know for now, the farthest we need to go, I think, is just sort of showing what some of those things will look like. Let's see how this rolls out. Because I think at the core of something like this is like this, wow, that just got real fancy. Let's put a gradient on that. So at the core of like a screen like this, you're going to have like your list of components here, and they're probably broken up like into web and data. This is horrible. But then you're probably like, I think what makes sense is you kind of have like the little thing here that's saying like how many of each, and you happen to tap that, it'll filter out the list and show you just the web stuff. Adding stuff. This is where we're going to have to do some design jujitsu. It's probably like a little dialogue. We know there's only these 3 types of things. Oh, it's not going to fit. But imagine if we had 3 boxes here and it was like web, worker, data, and then maybe like a blank for the name and a button to add it. All right, let's make some interface. Let's make it happen. We're going to have the guide advanced. We are not going to do the advanced run on this. All right, so add remove components. So we have 3 component types. We actually have a stack of components here in the design. So I think what we should start with probably is just like listing these 3 things out. Now we kind of get into using icons for this, right? So the web component is Ruby. So why don't we get our design folder open and start dragging in. Yep. Cool. I feel like most apps, even big ones, will only end up having like a dozen components, because my idea is we'll just put like let's start working it out. We're just gonna put in like some bars here that say web and how many web components there are. All right, so we're gonna do a web component first. So that'll be our Ruby. Yep. About to get serious. So what does a component consist of? It has a type, it has a name. Still have some controls like remove, maybe config, but I think the config should probably just be right here. If we say just the web component, I'm going to copy paste in the config for that guy because we'll work this out. Cool. I think that's fine. So this would be web.main. It's not looking right to me. It's looking a little big. We want to get as many of these on here as possible, I think. So maybe the name line and the controls are sort of like half of the circle. In my head, this made a lot of sense as I see it. I don't know. It doesn't look good. Is there even a thing where we could get rid of config and remove, and then removal is just something that shows up under that? Getting there. Getting to be a little bit more kind of how I envisioned it. All right, what cool stuff can we do with that? Gross. The first thing I try. Gross. That's disgusting. Ooh, we're getting there. This is about what I was thinking. Like the language setting on the side is just like it's an indication so you can move through it quickly. So now we just need to make a bunch more of these guys and figure out how much they space and all that. Okay, data DB, data Redis. This is how I name my components. The first one's called DB. The other one's called Redis. Not data Postgres, just data Redis. This will say worker. Worker. That's fine though. Okay, so the first database is going to be Postgres. That should be fun to stick in there. Let's grab that. Oh yeah, this will start looking great now. It's not the worst looking thing. I've seen worse. You know, Redis doesn't look too bad. All the workers are going to be Ruby, so we've got them all right there. Why don't we reduce the size? Not loving that part, but I think that's fine. Okay, so now we have to put in the add component dialog. That's like a weird button. We need to fix that. We need a button color. We don't have a button color. Let's see what's in the NASA style guide. They got a blue color that we haven't used yet. That might work. That could work. That could work as like a little selector. And I can probably tone that down and we'll say by half. So we'll get a nice little highlight color out of it. Why? Why is that how I spell worker? Why? It's in my head. A worker. So that's sort of our basic setup for that page. Let's show the web one playing out. Okay, so we know we'll have one where we just name this. We'll have one more to show the data thing, and we'll have one more to show how you configure a box. Okay, so let's say we're making one of these web. We'll move the opacity up. Okay, so let's name this web secondary server or something nice and long. I don't like that button. I don't like this whole thing. Dang it. Lose all the buttons when you click one. Now we're talking. Yeah, I don't know. We get the idea though. I think let's just agree that we're just trying to get the idea right now for this figured out. Is there any jujitsu we can do here? I think so. Why don't we remove it saying add component there? We'll move it down here. I'm also not happy with that. Add, how about, what if we said like add to stack? My philosophy, like when it comes to design, is iterate, iterate, iterate. I don't slow down. I think you move real quick through options. You move on to the next one when it doesn't work. Web should be worker since that's the longest one. Yep. I can live with that if you guys can live with that. That's not horrible. So now we got to do the selector for data. Looks good. Oh man, this is going to be a tough one, isn't it? I don't know. Do we need 2 lines here? I don't know. I don't know if we do. So we're almost done with this screen. We just have one more section here. So what do we got to do? We got to drop one of these guys down and show what it looks like. We have a big list of all the things you can set up here. So first off, when we do these, we're probably going to want that documentation. So let me pull that out of the other design. So I think what this looks like is you have on the left, you have that, and then you have another field right next to it that's got that. Just grab this whole stack. It always needs at least one start command, so the first one in there, no way to delete it. So just using our little test cases here, make sure we got enough space for it. Oh, she's a big one. Dang. This might have to go somewhere else entirely. Okay, well, I think that works for start commands. Stop force. So stop force is a boolean. So since this is a boolean, we could just use the same pattern from this. It's either on or it's off. And I wonder too, like if you're doing, maybe we shouldn't do it like that. Because there's kind of the thing, right? If we're doing this in CSS, this is gonna be a pain in the butt. Let's do a checkbox with dialogue next to it. Good enough? No, let's do a better one. We can do better than an X. Barely. And because we're clearly failing at some part of design, we're gonna just make sure people know that's enabled. Okay, so stop timeout then is just an integer that you can fill in. This is an interesting case here because whatever's stuck in there is gonna have the value of seconds. If we put this here, we'll put the word seconds next to it so the person understands what the units are that they're filling in. If I have a stop timeout, the default 7 seconds. How much is this going to be a thing? I kind of have an idea. So stop timeout doesn't exist unless stop force is set to true. So what we could do is like this. I think that would make sense. Okay. So the next thing would be linking the network directories. Then we would list the different storage components, and then under each one of those, you would be able to add stuff. You know, we have a project that does have actual pathing. Let me open that up. Yeah, so here's like one of the network dir's temp storage uploads. So we'll put that in there. And you could have multiple, so let's give this one multiple. Let's do another one. We'll call this just like umphs. And we'll give this just 1. Okay. And then we're kind of out of room there. So if there is a third, why don't we put it underneath this? We've got it again. It's back. This again. Okay, let's move the mouse around and see the UI. Okay, let's just clear it off here. Unreal. You spend like $300 on an app every year, and this is what you get. So what's our next like unique thing? Okay, cron. Every cron job has a name. It has the schedule, and it has the command which is run at the end of the schedule. We'll create a little builder for these because the command makes sense as an input. The schedule, I think you could input it if you wanted to, but why don't we pre-bake in, like we can just have little buttons. So it'll still be an input, but we'll just have these little buttons there. If they tap it, it'll like pre-fill, because in your given day as a normal developer, how often are you writing crons? Like you write that like once per project. You got to go look up the dang thing every single time. I don't even know what that's just like. Every time the moon aligns with the sun and the planet Earth, and Mercury's in retrograde, and the salmon are returning to the rivers of Seattle on Tuesdays at midnight. You know, like there's just like, who knows what that even says? All I want is like a few buttons that you tap and it pre-fills that thing. So maybe this should follow the same thing as this, because you can like, we can just make it so you easily change the name of it, the schedule, and the command over here. So let's grab that little orange color for the name. Boop. And then the command I've got running. It's a big old command, so that'll be good for this. Big boy. Let's go to 3 lines then. This is not working. What are we gonna do about this? We're gonna add some buttons here. Is there a word for every minute? Like every hour you can say hourly? Is there a word for every minute, like minutely? I don't think that's a word though. That doesn't, as I say it, I realize that's not a word. Minutely. There's daily. There's not secondly either. Why am I saying every week? Weekly. I think something we might have to consider is because there's 3 of these things, they need, like without a doubt, they need labeling. So like, this is looking better to me. We might have an opportunity here to create a linked elements, you know, kind of patterns. Let's do that. I'm moderately okay with that. I'm not 100% in on this. Think about it like this. Maybe this is enough little stuff that somebody who's brand new at this crap is gonna be able to like, oh, I finally understand what crons are doing. Like I finally get that it's just this pattern. So we're probably done with that. Add and remove the components. Can we remove the components? Do we have that in the UI? No. Let's add that real quick. And we can danger zone this sucker. So we can do a, what's a good confirm? The press and hold to unlock. So yeah, like a little button you smack, you hold it down, and it sort of like radials out or something along those ideas. That could be what we do, and that could pull the danger zone idea out. But I kind of think we need a danger zone pattern. We're not putting hazard tape on it, man. So that'll fade in, and then we will move something from left to right to indicate that it's filling up. So we'll just like mask out a div, absolute on top of it, and let it do its thing. Okay, just gonna resave this, and then that's gonna be it for tonight. In the meantime, though, guys, have a good night. Hit the
subscribe
button if you want more stuff like this. I don't know. Well, anyways, thanks, guys. Take care. See you next time.